All right. Well, I just ran in my car and I'm a little out of breath. But welcome back, bro.
Thank you.
Hell
back
yeah.
to back.
Another.
That's the
another,
official intro.
Yeah. Another couple weeks back in the game. How you
Yes,
feeling
sir.
after today, bro?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. It was a bumpy day, but we got through it, and we're feeling a lot better about it now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think was the bumpiest part in that case of your experience today?
Well, as you know, I had a haircut today that was a little bit difficult. It's just longer hair and just not a haircut I'm used to doing. And it just took me longer than what I expected. It came out great, in my opinion. I think it still looked good, but yeah, that was the bumpy part, was how long it took and the amount of effort that went into it.
Why do you think it took you longer than you wanted it to? Not that that's not unusual, because we always take longer than we want to, maybe on haircuts. But today it seemed like it was like an extra long time, right? Like,
Yeah.
Do you know why you felt that way?
Well, first of all, he had a lot of hair, and like he came in with a lot of hair to deal with, and also the style that he was looking for was not something that I'm too like used to doing that often.
Yeah.
So that's why it took.
It was like a fringe top, right?
Yeah.
Like a textured fringe on
Yeah,
top.
a lot of sheer work going into it, and
Was it a mid fade?
yeah,
Relatively.
but not a skin fade.
Okay, half.
So it was that, all those new things thrown in there was kind of what made everything take longer.
Do you think at your experience now that a half fade or a shadow fade like that is harder than just doing a skin fade?
I won't say it's harder. It's definitely less steps, but since I'm not used to doing it all the time, I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm missing steps
Yeah.
where it should just be a lot simpler.
I get that. I personally think they're easier. I've always felt that way because you don't have to take out the bald line, like the shaver bald line, which I know we were discussing that being an issue, which I want to touch on that too. But I personally like them better because of that. You're basically skipping a whole step of blending or fading it that way. But when you put that shaver in for a bald fade, it just makes it pop so much better.
I prefer doing the ball fades. You know what I mean? It's just, it feels like it just looks a lot cleaner too.
Yeah, I think another thing too, because you asked for help a couple times during the haircut, right? For there's certain things that you were not sure how to approach, which is fine, right? Like, we should encourage barbers to do that more often. But like we talked about earlier, I think that the way that we ask those questions in front of not other barbers, but the clients matters, because the way that you ask a question to a client who isn't thinking like a barber would or isn't around this environment as much, it can signal to them concerns that they don't need to be concerned with. Yeah. Right? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So, for example, I don't remember exactly how you asked anything, but let's say there was a specific thing you didn't know how to do. What was that? You good?
All the water fell.
Let's say there's a specific thing that you don't know how to do. When you're in that position and you have a client that obviously you don't have a rapport with, maybe it's their first time, right? Like, let's say like today, then there's a certain way that you should probably, and I'm not, again, this isn't directed at you, but just in general, because it came up, you should try to ask those questions in a way that isn't implying that you don't know how to do it, or isn't implying that you don't know what you're supposed to do. Because you can ask, for example, instead of saying, hey, how do I do this? Or I don't know how to do this, can you show me? A better way, in my opinion, to ask for newer barbers or people who are often in that position would be in front of clientele. You look over, let's say I'm next to you, and you say, hey, Philby, how would you do this? Or, hey, we're working on this. I'm planning on doing this for the haircut. I'm just curious how you would approach it. Could you maybe help me understand how you would look at this? Because then it doesn't imply that you don't know how to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, maybe you're just exploring your options or trying to broaden your horizons. Which
could cause probably more panic, right? Because like, I know in our situation today, at no point was there anything wrong with the haircut. But when I did ask for like, I can see where it can raise that concern for somebody. I was like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean? Which wasn't the case, really. It was just more or less certain things to do, you know what I mean, during the haircut.
And it's easy, especially as barbers in a barbershop like ours, where we all get along pretty well and joke around, talk crap to each other. And it's easy to lose sight of the perspective of the client when you're used to dealing with clients that you know very well. Like, so it's very easy to have a client come in that maybe isn't a regular or it's their first time and they don't know the dynamic. Yeah. So sometimes you might say or make a joke or say something along the lines where as a barber to barber, you get it, but you forget that the client's there and they don't have that perspective. Yeah. You know, so that's something that I just think that maybe a lot of people don't think about when it comes to like the way that they ask. Because even when I was a newer barber in a barbershop, I didn't, even though I knew I needed help and I want to ask, I was very aware of the impression of confidence that I was giving them, you know, which I know we talked about last time.
Yeah, and I feel that way too. Like for the most part, I try to not give off that vibe. You know what I mean? That I'm newer.
I think you do pretty well though. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm conscious of that too. Is like, you know, you don't want the person that's sitting in your chair to feel like you're not in good hands. You know what I mean?
Yep. Exactly.
100%.
And then another thing is, obviously every haircut you do when you're first learning is a learning experience, but I think that it's important to not get caught up in like trying to learn all the steps for a particular technique while you're in the middle of that haircut. Yeah. I don't think that it's bad to use that opportunity to learn, but for people who may be struggling with that in the barbershop while you're doing something new, it's like, just look at it as like a test, right? When you have a client in that chair, at that point, whatever you know, you know. And whatever you don't know, you don't know. Yeah. So complete the haircut first to the best of your ability. And then once you've done the job that you think you're complete with, then you can maybe double check with somebody else for confirmation, or see at the end that you have concluded it, okay, I think that I need a little more something here, or this needs to be changed here, as opposed to maybe getting lost in the sauce during a haircut because you're trying to figure out something new while somebody's there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Unless I think it's different if you know the person very well and they know you're learning new techniques or experiences with them. But I think otherwise, that's the time for you to just hunker down and commit to following through and getting the haircut done to the best of your ability, and then checking afterwards, as opposed to maybe trying to inch your way through it through the haircut.
I also have that bad habit where if I'm stuck somewhere, I can't really move beyond that. You know what I mean? Like I'll get stuck there and it's like I have so many other things I need to do on the haircut, but I can't really push past it because I'm struggling with this one point. So that definitely, I do have to do that more often, where it's like, just get it to where I can get it. And then, you know, Philby, what do you think I can do differently? Or what do you think I can improve on?
It's that tunnel vision. Yeah. You know, we all experience that in different ways too, because you could have tunnel vision like that, where you're just stuck on a particular obstacle during that haircut and that's all you're worried about. And you kind of either don't do the rest as much, or you kind of forget how much time you're spending on it. So in that case, it's always best to just move on to something else, because you're going to have to come back to that eventually. So it's like, finish the rest of it. But another way you can get lost in a tunnel vision would be like, if you already know, let's say you are more advanced, right? But you're doing a haircut and you just get so lost in completing the blurriest side you possibly can, that then now you only have 20 minutes left and you have a whole nother side to do. Yeah. So it's easy to get that kind of tunnel vision and get lost in the sauce. And sometimes, I mean, to this day, that still happens to me. Because even I think it was yesterday or today, I have a haircut where I don't usually complete one whole side and then do a whole nother side. That's not how I usually like to do it. But sometimes I'll just see it coming together so well that I just really want to finish this side. And then I have to go to the other side and I'm like, damn, I got to start a whole nother haircut over, you know, because you kind of are. You're doing two haircuts in one. I think psychologically, that's how that affects me. I don't like feeling like I'm starting over in the middle of the haircut.
That was today, by the way.
That we talked about today, that? Yeah. You see, like the days just blur together for me. But you don't do it that way either. You don't do one side then the other way.
No, I typically do, you know, I try to go all the way around when I'm doing my fades or whatever I'm doing. But it's happened to me, of course. Yeah. Like, you know, tunnel vision on one side and then it's like, oh, shit, I got to do the whole other side.
Yeah, bro. Plus, and you got recognized. You said you got recognized for doing the podcast.
Yeah. Somebody out there, you know, it's gaining traction.
Hell yeah.
You know,
that's good to know, bro. After one episode, and like we talked about earlier, I think it's great that at least we know that the stuff that we're doing and that we're learning on our own paths, at least somewhat is serving some value.
Yeah.
You know, that people have something that in some way, shape, or form is enough for them to remember or pay attention to. You know what I mean? Along the way.
You really lose sight of like who may be watching out there.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's reached people like other barbers that are just starting that are, you know, the stuff that we're putting out is helpful to them. You know what I mean? So that just makes it more impactful.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think it's dope too, coming from a person who has a little bit more experience, that you're going to be able to you're essentially documenting your whole journey, not only through Instagram and your pictures, but now your mindset through the conversations that we have and the different content and stuff that we do. So people tend to gravitate towards a story and growth, you know? So to be able to watch someone, even there may be people looking at your page right now that are just watching, and maybe they're not willing to get a haircut right now, but you're going to hit a point in a few months maybe where they're like, you know what? I'm trying to go. Yeah, I'm trying to go. So, you know, people like to watch that growth and the development and the story. And for whatever reason, everybody has a different point in which they want to engage or involve themselves. But that doesn't mean that people still aren't rooting for you and like, you know, hoping the best. And you can help inspire people in their own ways, you know. There's always somebody who wants what you have in some way, shape, or form.
I feel it, bro. I feel it. Yeah. Definitely.
Pause, but feel you. Well, I think that was a good quick episode for the week, man. I don't think there was a ton that we, I guess, had in mind, but I just wanted to make sure we sat down and had at least a refresher conversation towards what you've come to.
And more to come.
Hell yeah.
More to come.
Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you.